As for the Democrats, they debated in South Carolina last night. It got very personal, very rough, very quickly between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. It was clear about halfway through the debate this race was about to change, and it has. We start things off with our report tonight from NBC's Andrea Mitchell.
With barely time to change clothes, they were at it again today.
I think what we saw last night was that he's very frustrated. He clearly came last night looking for a fight.
We can't afford a president whose positions change with the politics of the moment.
If one thing is clear after last night, it's that this campaign has gotten personal.
While I was working on those streets, watching those folks see their jobs shipped overseas, you were a corporate lawyer sitting on the board of Walmart.
I was fighting against those ideas when you were practicing law and representing your contributor, Resco, in his slum landlord business in inner city Chicago.
For most of 2 hours, they traded insults, often at the same time.
Let's talk about Ronald Reagan. What you just repeated here today is patent. Wait, no, Hillary, you just spoke.
I did not say anything about Ronald Reagan. You said two things. You talked about admiring Ronald Reagan, and you talked about the ideas of the Republicans. I didn't talk about Ronald Reagan.
We just had the tape. You just said that I complimented the Republican ideas. That is not true.
The 1980 election was different. I mean, I think Ronald Reagan changed the trajectory of America in a way that, Richard Nixon did not, and in a way that Bill Clinton did not. I think it's fair to say the Republicans were the party of ideas for a pretty long chunk of time there over the last 10, 15 years. The 1980 election was different. I mean, I think Ronald Reagan changed the trajectory of America in a way that, Richard Nixon did not, and in a way that Bill Clinton did not. I think it's fair to say the Republicans were the party of ideas for a pretty long chunk of time there over the last 10, 15 years.
Senator Obama running against you, or running against Hillary Clinton, or running against both of you?
I don't know. I thought he was running against me in Nevada for a while when he said the Republicans had most of the new ideas and challenged the conventional wisdom in the 90s. I thought we challenged the conventional wisdom in the 90s. We proved that you could balance the budget and grow the economy, double investment in education. We proved you could improve the environment and improve the economy. We proved you could be pro-labor and help the business community. We proved that we could reduce the number of people on insurance. We've moved almost 8 million people out of poverty, and now there's 5 million more people in poverty in this decade. So I thought that it was our new ideas, whether it was community policing or the way we did welfare reform or the empowerment zones in poor communities, or just the general economic philosophy we had. We were challenging the conventional wisdom, so I didn't agree with that, but I don't really think he's running against me. I just think that he was doing what he thought he should do, and I have no quarrel with it.
Mr. President, you've asked the candidates, I think, in your words, to cool down, but you've kind of been called the attack dog in this campaign. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, the only time I was called that is when I questioned the argument and the attack that had been raised against Hillary for months and months and months in Iowa without any response, that there was a dramatic difference in where she was and where Senator Obama had been on the Iraq War. And all I said was there's not a nickel's worth of difference in their voting records, except she voted against one confirmation of a military commander that he voted for, and that she was speaking out against it when they were both in the Senate at an earlier point than he was. And he said in 2004 that there was no difference between him and President Bush on the war. And last night I noticed he didn't dispute that. But look, this is all just politics. John Edwards was right when he said that people wanted to hear the other stuff. You guys want to hear the politics. The voters want to hear the issues. And if you look at it, I can just tell you, I've been, how many town meetings have I done now? Nobody ever asked me about any of this in a town meeting. Not one time have I been asked, not in Iowa, not in Nevada, not in New Hampshire, not in South Carolina, not yesterday in Georgia or Tennessee. Not one question about any of this politics. Not even one. And how many? I've answered hundreds and hundreds of questions. So what the public wants America to do is to get back in the solutions business. They understand that the candidates will have some distinctions, and when one pops one, the other one will answer, and that's all a part of it. But that's the foam on on the basic campaign. The basic campaign is what are we going to do about America's challenges, and who's got the best plan, who'd be the most likely to execute it in a way that makes positive changes in other people's lives. That's all people ask me about. And I've said repeatedly also how much I admire Senator Obama, Senator Edwards, and the three that have withdrawn, whom I thought were terrific public servants. I think that this is a great primary field. They're going to have a few arguments. It's contact sport, but we shouldn't major in the minor and minor in the majors. The public believes the important thing is where are we going on the economy, where are we going on the international issue.
I think what we saw last night was that he's very frustrated. And I believe that the events, Senator Obama is very frustrated. The events of the last 10 or so days, particularly the outcomes in New Hampshire and Nevada, have apparently convinced him to adopt a different strategy. So he clearly came, he telegraphed it, he talked about it. He clearly came last night looking for a fight. And he was determined and launched right in. And I thought it was important to set the record straight, because what you say has consequences. And there have been a lot of comments made over the last days that I think should be aired. And so as the debate really took off, and as he came forward with all of his various points, I thought it was important to respond. Clearly, I believe that words matter, but I think actions matter more. And time again, we see where the words and actions don't match. And I think there were a number of examples of that last night. So I believe that this is a campaign. It is a contest. Each of us has to be held responsible for our records, for what we say and what we do. And I think on both sides, our surrogates are obviously out there advocating for each of us. But this is between us. This is who's on the ballot. This is who is presenting our case to the public. And I think that last night you saw a lot of contrast.
The 1980 election was different. I mean, I think Ronald Reagan changed the trajectory of America in a way that, Richard Nixon did not, and in a way that Bill Clinton did not. I think it's fair to say the Republicans were the party of ideas for a pretty long chunk of time there over the last 10, 15 years. The 1980 election was different. I mean, I think Ronald Reagan changed the trajectory of America in a way that, Richard Nixon did not, and in a way that Bill Clinton did not. I think it's fair to say the Republicans were the party of ideas for a pretty long chunk of time there over the last 10, 15 years.
I would never use Ronald Reagan as an example of change. Whether it was damage to the union movement and the organized labor movement, damage to the middle class through a tax structure that favored the wealthiest Americans and the biggest corporations in America, or the incredible devastation to the environment while he was president of the United States, I can promise you this president will never use Ronald Reagan as an example for change.